half was the Kalam argument, that time has a beginning. So the argument number one goes something like this, just to sum it up. The universe does not need to exist. Because it does not need to be here, there must be some explanation for why it is here. The only explanation that reasonably works is that there has to be a being that exists necessarily. That being must be infinitely powerful, and that being must be infinitely intelligent. Because the universe, and this is getting in the second proof, is suffused with signs of intelligence. The fact that we are intelligent beings suggests that we were created by an intelligent being. Okay? God is not like a bunch of monkeys typing and eventually typing out Shakespeare. God made this world intelligently. Now, I know this is a big argument people get into, creation versus evolution. I'll tell you what the church teaches, and I think it's very reasonable. And the church has taught this actually for a long time. I can show you a book I have in my office that's been published and republished through the 30s and 40s, 1930s and 1940s. And it goes something like this. All of this notion of evolution, that the universe contains certain laws that allowed for over time the creation, even of human beings, we have no problem with that. We have no problem with that. Other Christians have had problems with that. They said, no, the universe has to be created in 6 days. God rested on the seventh day. That's what the Bible said. That's what we believe. Anything to the contrary, the devil put dinosaur bones here to trick us. Okay? Anything to the contrary, no. That's not what the Catholic Church teaches. The Catholic Church does teach that God individually creates the human soul. So Adam and Eve were the first two human beings that had a rational soul. That's actually how we define a human being. A human being is an animal that has a rational soul. That's us. So we don't have to worry about the creation versus evolution thing. And in fact, I have to say, I think it says a lot more for God that the universe is as old as it is, that it is as beautiful as it is, that it is as complex as it is. It's an ongoing proof of God's infinite intelligence. So our second proof gets into the universe itself. So we talked about why the universe exists. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the nature of the universe. And this proof is going to demonstrate that the universe exists in such a way for life to be able to exist. And that it exists in that way cannot be due simply to chance. It cannot be simply chance. Now, you've heard of gravity, you've heard of electricity, you've heard of magnetism. Electromagnetism, gravity. These are two of what are called the forces in the universe. These are the two we're most familiar with, gravity and electromagnetism. All of our electricity is generated based on this principle, that if you take a magnet, you spin it in a coil of wire, it creates electricity. Maybe I remember being in 4th grade, the teacher had us all hold hands, and two kids on either end put their fingers on a generator and they spun it, and it's a magnet inside a coil of wire. We all got shocked. I don't care if it's nuclear power, coal power, whatever it is, it's built on that principle. We're all familiar with that, gravity and electromagnetism. There are two other forces that we hardly ever talk about. They're easy to remember the names of. There's the strong force and the weak force. The strong force and the weak force. The strong force is basically responsible for holding atoms together. For holding the particles that make up atoms, holding them together. The weak force has to do with the rate of decay. So we know how radiation works, that, atoms, we split the atoms, there's radiation created, there's a decay that takes place in atoms. The rate at which that decay occurs is called the weak force. Now, scientists noticed something very interesting about these four forces. Gravity, for a blessing. That's a real blessing, too. is of a certain strength, right? Here we are on Earth. If we go on the moon, right, it's lighter, right? You know, if we were on Jupiter, it'd be crushing us. But gravity has a certain strength depending on the mass that we're standing on, okay, this planet Earth. Gravity is actually quite weak when you think about it, right? Because a little magnet that's like that big can pick up a paper clip that is being pulled down by this entire planet. Gravity is actually a very, very weak force. It's the weakest of the four by far. But gravity has a certain strength. It could have been, hypothetically, it could have been that this Earth of this mass would produce gravity much stronger. That we would be really pulled down on Earth of this size. And that maybe walking on the moon would feel normal. It would feel like this. But it has a set strength, which seems to be utterly arbitrary. Like when God made the universe, He just said, I'm going to make gravity that strong. What they found was that if gravity was any stronger, that when the Big Bang happened, when every bit of matter that's in you, that's in me, that's in the moon, the sun, the farthest, most distant quasar, when it was all pressed together in that little tiny subatomic size, if gravity was too strong, it would have blown up and it would have sucked back in on itself. And it might have gone through these cycles of explosions and retractions. But the planets wouldn't have been able to form. There'd be no galaxies, there'd be no stars. The same is true if gravity was too weak. That things would spread out so much that the asteroids wouldn't be able to kind of combine and make the planets. What's true of gravity is true also of electromagnetism, the strong force and the weak force. If any of them were slightly off, not only would there be no life, there would not even be atoms. Okay? Basic hydrogen atom. One proton, one electron spinning around it, right? If any of these forces were slightly off, life would not exist. Nothing, I mean, things would exist, but it wouldn't have any shape to it. Scientists call this the anthropic principle. It seems like the universe exists in such a way, and everything is in such a perfect balance, it's almost like it was put there for people to exist, for life to exist. Now, as you know, a lot of scientists don't believe in God. They believe in empirical proofs. They say, I don't want to use just a rational proof. I want to see it. I want to touch it. I want to measure it. So some scientists do not believe in God. So the explanation they give for this goes something like this. Admittedly, this universe had to exist in just the right way for life to exist. In fact, check this out. The odds that this universe would have those four forces in just such a perfect balance for life to exist are the same odds, I didn't make this up, okay? This is an astrophysicist talking. The same odds that if you took a dart, like you play darts with, and you threw it across the universe, and it hit the most distant quasar, a target 1 millimeter in width. That's the odds that those four forces would be in balance, allowing for the creation of life. So the atheist scientists, they see this, they know it, they don't just agree with it. So what do they say? They say, well, our universe must be one of many, many, many universes. Countless universes. Way more universes than there are atoms in the universe. They call this the multiverse. And they say that because there are so many different universes, one of them, by chance, had to exist with exactly the right parameters for life to come about. And because that's ours, and that's what we live in, that's why we feel like we're so lucky. I'm only an amateur astrophysicist, I like to read Scientific American, Discovery Magazine, right? That's hogwash. That many universes. Even a scientist has to say, if I only believe in it, things I can observe, things I can measure, where's the proof for these other universes? What other universes? We can't see beyond the edge of our own universe. And I would also say this. Even if all of those other universes existed, we go from proof 2 back to proof 1. The multiverse is not necessary. Therefore, a necessary being had to create it, and that being is God. So if you try to find your way out of proof 2, you get stuck back in proof 1. So this universe is very finely tuned. I remember taking a class in molecular and cell biology at Berkeley, and the professor saying that water has 14 different qualities, any of which, if you removed them, life would not be able to exist. And he started demonstrating a bunch of these. He said the fact that ice floats. In other kinds of liquids, when it freezes, it sinks. But the fact that our lakes freeze on the top, and that living things can continue to thrive underneath, where it's actually warmer and traps the heat in. The fact that there's water retention. If you put a drop of water on a table and you look at it sideways, it's like a dome, right? There's a retention to it. That allows life to thrive in it. The fact that if you look at a water molecule, H2O, right? You have the big oxygen atom, the 2 little hydrogen atoms up here. It looks like a Mickey Mouse head. The fact that those 2 hydrogen atoms are up at the top and not on both sides, not evenly on each side, gives the water molecule a charge. It's positive on one side, negative on another, allowing molecules to connect and for this free flow of chemicals to take place, which is necessary in life. So he showed a whole bunch of these. It was amazing. Water alone has to have some 14 different qualities in order for life to exist. There's a beautiful book. I was actually looking for it before this talk. I think it must be in storage somewhere. Written by a priest named Thomas Dubé. He passed away recently. And he called it The Evidential Power of Beauty. The Evidential Power of Beauty. I would really recommend this book to you, because what he does is he goes through all of these different things about the universe, that if they were slightly different, that life wouldn't be able to exist. He essentially says that the greatest proof of God's existence is the immense beauty we see in the world around us. The fact that a human cell has as much information in it as a city block in Manhattan. That includes all those file cabinets with all those papers. It has that much data in it. And it's so tiny you have to see it under a microscope. Oh, and it doubles every couple of hours or whatever. Something that complex takes place. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So our 2 proofs of God's existence that I'm going to leave you with today, just to kind of restate them, and I'm actually going to end in under an hour. I went 50 minutes. I think having taught high school, I would always go 50 minutes. So I think I had like a natural kind of sense of cutoff there. But the 2 proofs go something like this. The universe does not need to exist. If it exists, which it does, it had to have been one necessary being of infinite knowledge and infinite power. And infinite freedom. Nothing caused it to do it. The second proof shows that the universe was so finely tuned and the odds so astronomically small that it could have happened on accident, that there must be a God who made the universe just so. Those are our 2 proofs for God's existence that we're looking at today. The nice thing is, it tells us a lot about God. It tells us a lot about who He is. And I'm going to use those qualities, we'll call them qualities that God must have, as we move on to our next topic next week, which is Scripture. Is this a book just kind of written by people, just making things up? Were they inspired by God? Was it something written by God that fell down from the heavens? Right? We'll look at it and say, is there something we can say about the Scripture to know that it's true if we understand it in the correct way? Not that it's true like the world was made in 6 days, but is it true? Okay? So we're going to look at that next week. At this point, since we have, well, I'll tell you what. My students would love me if I did this. At this moment, I'm going to let you go if you want to go. And if you want to email questions, if you want to do something like that, and we can do that. And I'll give people the opportunity to do that. And then if you'd like to ask some questions now, we could absolutely do that. But let me give you my email address. And hopefully the website will be up. Let me give you the website first. Okay? And if you go on and you see this thing, these words marqueeing across the screen saying, coming soon, then you'll know I haven't fixed it yet, because that's what's up right now. And if, unfortunately, Google hasn't, once I get the new site up, Google will pick up on it better. Right now it's on like page 4 if you put in Madonna del Sasso Church. So hopefully we'll get it up there on the number 1, or maybe right after the school. Okay, if they have that. But it's www.mdschurch.org. www.mdschurch.org. So I think it'll say stay tuned for our website or something if you go there now.
Did you say .org?
.org, yeah, .org, mdschurch.org. Full disclosure, I got the .com address too. If you go to .com, it'll just take you to .org, but officially it's .org. I've never designed a web page before, so this has been an enlightening and enraging process, but it should be up very soon. It's definitely a good skill to have, but once that new page gets up, and I might not even finish doing the whole website, look on the left, and I'm going to have something that says Introduction to the Faith Series. And just click on that, and I'll also have my email address there. And then again, with your permission, I will post your question up and post an answer, because other people might have the same answer. In the meantime, let me give you my email address, that you can email questions. You can go home and email them tonight if you want. I'll check it tomorrow. F.R. Clifton. That's Father Clifton. F.R.C.L.I.F.T.O.N. at mdschurch.org. F.R. Clifton, like Father Clifton, at mdschurch.org. So feel free to submit your questions. If you forget to tell me I can use it to put on the website, I might just email you back. And like I said, I won't put your email address. I take all the personal information out. And then the shortest response you could possibly get is stay tuned, because we might discuss it later.